Hi, this is QAShahin, and today we are going to continue looking at extending the page object model for WebDriverJS. The agenda of this video is very simple. We're going to look at what we did already, so we're going to look at the home page, and we're going to start looking at extending the home page. In particular, when we talk about extensions, we're going to start introducing a base page object. We're going to look at what a base page is and why you would want to actually use one, what reasons would motivate you to actually start introducing a base page, and then we're going to see how we can end up using the two ideas together. So if you remember, we went to the testroom.com and we navigated to the test web app. And once we navigated to this, all we did was we clicked on the adoption link. So if we revisit our test, all we did was we had a home page class. And all that did was that had a constructor which created the driver. It then had a method to navigate to the test room, and then another method to click on the adoption link. Now, for this video, we're going to start looking at extending the home page. Now, before we actually extend the home page, let's take a second to just briefly look at this home page class and try and see the scope and almost valuation of the class. If we look at the constructor is building the driver. Now, that's a great thing, because what that means is that if we want to create a driver, all we have to do is just create an instance of this. In other words, we're sort of doing it here. But what if we don't want to do that? What if we want to have multiple page objects? If we have multiple page objects, does that mean if we follow this exact template, we're going to have multiple constructors? Well, yes, it does, but that's not what we want. If you have multiple constructors, then that means there's a good chance you're going to end up calling this build method multiple times. And if you do that, then what that means is you will end up opening multiple browsers. Now, this is not something we want. So that is basically a problem we need to think about now and try to find a way of resolving that. This method, navigate to the test room. Now, navigate to the test room isn't something that should belong on the homepage class. Now remember, the homepage class is supposed to be a JavaScript file that is supposed to represent all the functionality on the home page. And this particular function doesn't necessarily belong to that home page. For instance, we could write this method for any given page object, i.e. adoption page, about page, contact page, subscribe to this channel page. Whatever page you have, this method could apply to that. So ideally, we want to put this in a place where it is locally available to any given page object without being in any specific page object. For instance, without being in, say, homepage, where this functionality could be better used if it's in a more global like state. Finally, this method here, click on the adoption link. Now, click on adoption link does belong on the homepage because the homepage does in fact have that adoption link. So if we look at these three things, this would be more useful if it is globally shareable across multiple page objects. This would be more useful if we put it in a place where it is again shareable. This method should stay on the home page because the home page does actually serve this specific functionality. If we go back to our test script, all we did was we said homepage, navigate to the test room, and then homepage, click on the adoption link. So what are we going to do? Well, now that we've sort of talked about a possible problem to resolve, i.e. sharing the constructor, moving this to somewhere else, then we can now start to think about a solution. Now, one thing you should do whenever you're automating is never ever start thinking about a solution without understanding the problem first. It is important you understand the problem because then the solution is driven by the problem. And in this case, our problem is we want this to be outside of the home page and we want this to be outside of the home page, but at the same time, we want it to be accessible to the home page. So the question arises, where should we put these? Now, a good place to put this would be somewhere like the base page. So, base page. What is a base page? Now we said that the home page is something that is specifically trying to simulate the functionality of the home page. The base page is almost like saying it is an abstract page. It isn't something that is specifically pointing to a very specific page. It is almost representing the abstract level of a given page type. In other words, it is a place where we could put down common methods that belong to all pages, or methods which help us to manage our pages without actually polluting specific pages such as the home page. Now this will make more sense as we start to introduce this base page. So let's go ahead and start writing a base page. So for the base page, I'm just going to say class base page, and I'm going to provide it a constructor. And I am going to export this as well. Now let's quickly save this. So I'm going to save it as base.js, and let's set it to all types. Right, so now I have a base page. Now what do I want this base page to do? So the first thing I said was I want this to happen in the base page. Okay, I am literally just going to cut this out of the home page and put it in the base page instead. Right, now that we've moved the driver into this, what we need to do is also import in the WebDriver. So let's do that. And let's put it on the top. Okay. Now something else I also want to do is move this method out of the home page and place it in the base page. Okay. Now, what have we done? Well, we now have two page objects. We have a home page and we have a base page. Now, the base page is something that I see as an abstract page. I will not create an instance of it, so there is no way of creating an instance of this. But at the same time, I want all of this to be shareable across other page objects, which are an actual implementation of an actual page. So again, let me make this clear. This is not an implementation of an actual page. This is almost like saying it is a bucket that contains a lot of information for pages. It is simply a place that contains common functionality across all pages. And it also gives us some means, some mechanics of being able to share the instance of the driver. Now, if we want to share the instance of the driver, at the moment this is not shared. However, if we say this.driver, this now automatically creates a var instance of the driver and also initializes it. So what this is now doing is basically saying the driver is now equal to this. And notice that we haven't defined a driver outside of the constructor. This still becomes available inside this method here. If we now go back to our home page, we need to make a few changes here. And the changes we need to make are, first of all, we need to extend from the base page. So we say extends base page. We also need to import in that base page. So if I say base page is now equal to require base. And finally, because base page has an instance of the driver, we can simply say this.driver. So what is happening here? Now what we're doing is saying the home page extends the base page. If we go into the base page, then we can see that has a constructor which initializes the driver, and it also has the method to navigate to the test room. On the home page itself, we only now have one function, which simply clicks on the adoption link. Now this is very specific to the home page because this link actually belongs on the home page. If you now look at it from a very overview perspective, we can now see that the base page is doing stuff that is very specific, as is the home page. If we go to our test, believe it or not, nothing changes in the test, because from the test perspective, Since homepage extends base page, in other words, homepage is inheriting base page, homepage gets both this method and click on the adoption link. So let's prove this by simply trying to run our test. Now all I'm going to say is nothing different, node.test.js. And there you go. The test was able to navigate to our test site and then click on the adoption link. So what have we learned in this video? In this video, we looked at, first of all, reviewing our homepage and seeing the scope of the homepage. We decided to move the constructor and the navigate to the site itself out into a base page, which explicitly helped us to introduce the base page and its purpose in our small framework. What we have now ended up with is now a concept which looks like we can start writing more page objects, but also reduce the amount of duplication we'll have in the code, because a lot of the managing and mechanics will be taken care by our base page, whilst also giving us the ability to write very specific page objects. Thanks a lot for watching this video. I will see you in the next one.